What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Check the Kick. Sherdog.com is a website. I am the host, Devin. We are back off of a pretty decent weekend of fights. UFC Nashville, not a bad card. Some people were bashing it. I did not think it was a bad card. Bad in as far as like fights that didn't matter, but like in execution, it was pretty good. I do have a middle segment of the show today. We're not going to spend too much time on it, but it's kind of a funny topic. I can't believe I'm going to be here talking about it and covering that topic. And then the final segment of the show, we're going to talk about UFC 318 down in Louisiana. Dustin Poirier is fighting Max Holloway. Very interesting card all around. We'll run through the UFC Nashville real quick. We had Derrick Lewis getting a 35-second knockout over Talison Teixeira. He was an underdog. I really wish I did a show for this. It's always like the fights you see super clear that you decide to take the week off. But watching Talison's UFC debut where he beat Justin Tafa, that was fine. And then his fight on the Contender Series, though, he was fighting this just like super blown up middleweight. This dude that looked like could have easily been a middleweight. That definitely had a little bit of extra on the midsection. I'm not one to talk, but I'm here to analyze the sport. And this dude was like touching Teixeira up, putting him on the back foot. Teixeira was landing tons of clean shots. He eventually finished the dude, but like he had to land on him a ton. And this guy, who was even more of a rudimentary striker than Derrick Lewis, significantly smaller than Derrick Lewis, and hits significantly less harder than Derrick Lewis, like hurt Talison Teixeira multiple times in the fight, landed on Talison Teixeira in the fight. And I'm like, well, if your plan is to be like a 7-foot tall, rangy kickboxer with like poor head movement and poor defense, and like you've got good power, but it's not, you're not Francis Ngannou, or you're not Derrick Lewis, or you're not Sergey Pavlovich, or you're not Tom Aspinall. Those fights just become automatic coin tosses against Derrick Lewis. And like Tai Tuivasa looks like a giant baked potato right now, but like, would I be sure that Talison Teixeira could beat him too with his game plan? I don't know. I could see Tuivasa knocking the dude's head off the same way. Just seemed like a real obvious. The fight seemed to be just a super obvious outcome for me. Sorry if I'm coughing a little bit. I live in the state of Washington, and there's like 3 wildfires close to my house right now. Got the AC on. I've got an air purifier right here, but it's still a little bit smoky outside. Maybe it'll just give me like a deep smoky voice. Yeah. Derrick Lewis hit this dude. He got jabbed in the eye. He said he pretended to be hurt, but he like started to rub his eye, and then the second Talison went in for the kill, he fired back. Derrick does that type of stuff sometimes with like pretend he's hurt to the body and fire back. It's kind of quite funny. But he might have been hurt to the eye, but like it doesn't matter because he landed one not even like super clean shot, a big glancing hook, knocked Talison Teixeira down. Talison Teixeira went rolling backwards. Derrick Lewis has insane ground and pound. He's huge. He has literally like some of the most devastating ground and pound in the history of MMA. And I know you're like, he's not a wrestler. No, I mean, when I mean ground and pound, like when he is on top of his opponent and he is punching them in the head, they usually don't survive that shit. Talison Teixeira actually stayed pretty durable. He got rung up a bunch of times. And then he started to turn around and like a fugitive running from the police, climbing a fence. Kidding. More like a cat. Homie had to climb the fence. Like there was multiple times where he had 2 hands into the octagon chain link. So he's like he's in there, man. And he was like climbing out like how you'd climb like a ladder, climbing up that fence. And he got buzzed kind of behind the ear a couple of times, dropped down, and then popped back up and like threw this like weird spinning back fist. I think something that's being slept on too about this finish is like, if you were to ask Herzog why this fight was stopped, he'd probably say because Talison Teixeira turned his back to his opponent. It's a huge thing in boxing, by the way. Like you can't turn your back to your opponent. In MMA, you should never turn your back to your opponent. But getting rung up the way he got rung up, and then, there was moments where he kind of gave his back and gave his back to the opponent. That's like, you're absolutely done. So that's probably why he called the fight. Was it a good stoppage? Probably not. But like, I'm also not gonna complain about it. Like, so he doesn't stop it, and then Derrick Lewis just crushes him again. Like, is that what you want? And then they have to like scrape this dude up off the octagon. Maybe that is what you want. Whatever. Just funny. So like now Derrick Lewis might fight for a heavyweight title in 2025. Here's the reason though. It's not going to be a deserved title shot. It's Derrick Lewis. All this dude's got to do is knock out one more person in the top 15, and he's gonna get a title fight. And honestly, he might not even need to win another fight. And the reason I say that is because Derrick Lewis freaking is like Tom Aspinall's one of the dudes that like they haven't been matched up yet. I did not deliver that very clearly or very articulately. But no, Derrick Lewis and Tom Aspinall have not fought each other yet. So I don't know, maybe like we need some, this shit could totally happen where like we need like a heavyweight to, show up on semi-short notice. We need a main event for a pay-per-view in, I don't know, September, whatever. Maybe in like February of 2026, if Tom Aspinall gets a fight in and beats someone and Derrick Lewis is just dangling out there and he needs an opponent, maybe they do something. I don't know. But surely if he goes and knocks someone else out in the top 15, like, would he deserve it? No. But like, would the UFC give it to him? Probably, because like he's right now is like active heavyweights besides Tom Aspinall. He might be the biggest name up there, especially with Jon Jones gone, even though Jon Jones says he's back in the testing pool now. Like, that's the most reporting I will do on that. So yeah, Derrick Lewis is like one punch away from another title fight, basically, in my opinion, which is funny. I'm not saying he deserves it. I'm just, what's the UFC going to do? I've been watching and covering the sport for quite a bit of time now, and the UFC has done some funny stuff, and it's men's heavyweight. Like, yeah, I know Johnson Almeida has a win over him, but like for a person that's going to be like on ESPN Plus or wherever the hell they're going to order the next pay-per-view, they're going to be clicking that pay now button when they see Derrick Lewis. They're going to see Johnson Almeida and go, who the hell is that? Like, they couldn't main event something with Aspinall versus Johnson Almeida, probably not, which is sad and unfortunate, especially since they're heavyweights and UFC likes to put them at the top. But totally, Derrick Lewis versus Tom Aspinall, UFC would gladly have that as a headline on the pay-per-view. Not a ton of like X's and O's in this fight. Derrick Lewis threw a jumping switch kick. He got hit with one punch in the eye by Taliesin's knuckle, covered up. If he was hurt, even more impressive, and just like brawled with Taliesin, knowing that Taliesin was going to be willing to do it and just like clipped him and killed him. The same thing Derrick Lewis is going to do to every heavyweight that just pulls up off the Contender Series. Like, he's 40. He's like, keep giving me these Brazilian taxi cab drivers. That was awesome and funny. His post-fight celebration was one of the funniest that I've ever seen. Silly, funny, dumb kind of, but like he pissed on Taliesin Teixeira's corner. When Izzy does it, it's like cringy because he's like serious, but like Derrick Lewis is like doing it as a joke. So like he like ran over and like lifted his leg and like pretended to piss on Taliesin's corner. Whatever. He shot arrows into Taliesin Teixeira too, which I found just to be funny because it's like he definitely did not. He's just like, I'm going to shoot arrows at this dude. So he's like, and then he showed his ass to the Nashville crowd. We all saw Derrick Lewis's butt. He showed his whole ass to the whole entire Nashville, I mean, to the world. Someone was on Twitter like, that's indecent exposure. I'm like, come on, man. Come on. Good win for Derrick Lewis. Like, straight up, shout out to him. I was very happy. It was really funny. My wife was like out shopping and she went to the store, right? So she walked in the door, my dogs were all excited, and I'm like, oh, cool. That was like the second that, like, it was 4:59 on the main event. She had just gotten home. And then she went out to the car which is parked just outside of our garage, like 30 or 40 steps from the living room, give or take more, probably more, 50 steps from the living room. She went out, got whatever small thing she left in the car, and by the time she got back inside, the fight was over. So yeah, shout out Derrick Lewis. She's like, "Oh, the fight's over already?" I'm like, "Yep, it's done. Derrick Lewis just caught a body." UFC Nashville had a bunch of really cool fights. The co-main event, I did not love the decision there. I thought Wonderboy did enough. I number one, like in a fight that's like close, but one person's kind of probably clearly winning, and then if we're in a round and based off the current scoring criteria, my interpretation, impact, damage are supposed to actually be rewritten soon. Impact, damage is what needs to be, rated the highest, and then it's, effective striking, effective grappling, octagon control. So if two combatants are striking and one person, it's close, but one person's fairly winning for 3 minutes and 30 seconds of a round, and then the other person that was losing the striking, not by a ton, but kind of probably clearly losing, goes and just gets a bunch of octagon control and like holds them against the cage and like doesn't really threaten takedowns, but even if they do, they're just getting defended, which kind of is supposed to become null and void. That kind of mostly turns into octagon control, and then at that point, impact, effective striking, effective grappling, and octagon control, like to me, that would not supersede what happened in the first 3.5 minutes or even first 3 minutes. So I do think Wonderboy won the third round of that fight. I do think Wonderboy probably should have won that fight. It's really sad because homie's called Wonderboy. He's got a full head of gray hair. And he's out there like doing this to dudes like Gabriel Bonfim. When I say doing this, like competing with these young dudes that are sub 30 years old that were like once undefeated not long ago. I think Gabriel Bonfim has one loss. Funny was from an old dude. He's got a problem fighting these old guys. He's going to stop signing that. After this Wonderboy fight, he's going to stop signing that contract for these UFC legends and these old dudes. Because like he should have lost this fight. Like it was close, but like Bonfim should have lost. He won the first round. Had the almost had the choke in, and then Wonderboy did get a kick checked and like had his shin blown up, and he still rocked Bonfim with the head kick, and like the shin thing is like a damage, and you can consider that damage, but like okay, cool, you cut my shin open, but then I use that same shin to batter you in the head and like get you like super rocked. To me, like what's closer to ending a fight, his shin being open or your unconscious body? Like the unconscious dude is closer to not being able to compete anymore than the dude with the leg wound. The leg wound will catch up to you, but the fights aren't unlimited. They're 3 5-minute rounds. Like to me, that's not a fight ending injury yet. Even though Jack Shore, we did see his shin completely blow up, but two different things. Calvin Kattar and Steve Garcia had a good fight. Steve Garcia won. He, unfortunately, he was not able to finish Calvin Kattar, even though he hurt him several times in that fight. Calvin Kattar just kind of seems to be done. Nate Landwehr and Morgan Charrier put on a fucking hell of a scrap where the first round Morgan was looking good with his like check hooks and his clean counter boxing. And then Nate Landwehr just said, F it, I'm going to go out there and be a dog with this guy and like put Morgan Charrier on the back foot in the second round and started to pull ahead. He was like flexing to the crowd, doing all this shit. And then in the third round, it's like in between the second and third round, it's like Morgan Charrier's corner like took a hammer and was like, here, take this hammer and go hit Nate Landwehr in the head with it 10 times. The way Morgan Charrier just said, fuck it, and went out there and just like brawled with Nate Landwehr like he could have gassed out. If that didn't work, he would have gassed out and been done. By the way, this fight was starting to trend for a late Nate Landwehr. I should call him that. It's Nate Landwehr. The way it was starting to look for Nate though, and then all of a sudden Morgan Charrier just fucking uncorked these crazy big hooks that when Nate was pressed up against the cage and just fucking folded him. Incredible win. Vitor Petrino is a heavyweight and he subbed out Austin Lane. He did what he was supposed to do. Tuco Tokos and Junior Taffa, the heralded Taufa brothers. Tuco Tokos won a second round submission after being rocked. I'm okay to not see those dudes in the UFC anymore. Chris Curtis won a good fight against Max Griffin. Max Griffin, poor guy, was like posting the like striking numbers the day after the fight, and it's like stats matter, but if you're using stats to argue who won or lost a fight, you already lost the argument because the judges don't get a copy of the stats. So I don't care about punch count. Yeah, it matters, but like the judges that are scoring the fight don't get the punch count. They don't get anything. They only get what they see. That's why you see some of these people with this crazy leaf blower offense that are like, you know, throwing 100 strikes around and landing at a 22% clip or whatever, you know? Like, anyway. Jake Matthews ran through Chidi and Jaquani in like a hair over a minute. That was really, really dope. Lauren Murphy came back from like a 2-year hiatus that we thought was a retirement. Fought Eduardo Mora, jumped the guillotine in the third round, almost had it, Lauren. She didn't look good. She's 42, you know. Tough night for the 40-year-olds. Eduardo Mora won, and I'm not hype on Eduardo Mora. Like, she's like gassed out and like almost lost this fight in the third round. If a better fighter, if there was someone else in there besides Lauren Murphy, they would have done some damage. Walter Walker may be my most hated but most favorite heavyweight because he's 14-1. His one loss is against Lucas Brzeski, who like might be the worst heavyweight on the roster. I do love Chris Barnett, but you know, lost a weird bad fight to him on his UFC debut, and then all of a sudden he's become like the second coming of Frank Mir, and he's just like subbing dudes like via heel hook over and over and over again in the UFC. He subbed out Kennedy and Nzechukwu in under a minute. Mike Davis had a really cool fight with Mitch Ramirez where he like went out there, almost subbed him, took his back, literally like a hair away from 10-8 in the first round. And then in the second round, like the first minute, he looked slow. He was like gasping for air. His eyes were wide open. He was like throwing in slow motion. And then all of a sudden, he's just like, fuck it, I'm going to go box. Literally, I put into the Sherdog Slack. Man, what happened to the old Mike Davis that used to brawl with dudes? What happened to the old dude that brawled at Mason Jones? Well, he pulled up and just murked Mitch Ramirez after kind of getting touched up in a weird way for a moment. Just weird. I'm like, you're better than this one. Yeah, he is. And then Fatima Klein was having a really close fight that kind of started to get away from her against Melissa Martinez, and then got this like Leon Edwards / more Robert Whittaker-y to me, where they'll throw the lead hand, throw the rear hand, and then hide the kick, boom, behind the rear hand. She kind of faked the rear hand and threw the kick behind it. I thought that was dope. And it was kind of set up almost like a question mark. It didn't like and like whip over the top like the question marks, but it kind of hung in tight and like whipped right over the top of Martinez's head. Boom, dropped her down, finished her. That was a dope, really, really dope performance as well from her. And I was kind of, you know, talking some shit about her in the Slack chat saying, I'm not hype on her yet. But no, I mean, she needs to definitely work on her wrestling because she was going out there to wrestle and Martinez was really well prepared and she was a huge underdog. But to be able to make that read and pull that out, you know, halfway through the third round of the fight, that was getting close and starting to maybe get away from her. That was really, really impressive. UFC Nashville wasn't a bad card. Poor Taliesin Teixeira, though, if you go to Sherdog.com, there's an article about what the Walker brothers accidentally got Taliesin Teixeira's hotel room key. So they like went into his room and like pretended to run one off and like pretended to take dumps in his toilet and like rolled around. Basically did like, they have a combined IQ of 86, him and Johnny, but they did like their Ooga Booga caveman bit like all through, you know, his house. Their caveman bit is funny. But they did their whole bit that they do all through Taliesin Teixeira's hotel room. And then he got knocked out by Derrick Lewis and shot with fake arrows and mooned. UFC Nashville, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on to the middle segment of the show, What's Hot? We are going to talk about some of the legends in our sport, whether they're, you know, young, active, or not. People that will definitely become legends, kind of doing some unlegendary things. This week it comes out that there was some more charges added to Jon Jones's little tiny run-in with the cops, we'll say, where he blatantly threatened the cops, saying that his brothers do things for less, and if they don't like this, just go look up the it's honestly sad and kind of like, it's really embarrassing. Someone of Jon Jones' stature, I would be ashamed of myself. I mean, quite frankly, I'd be ashamed of myself for doing anything like that. I would never do something like that. But yeah, so more charges were added because he's like clearly threatened a police officer and stuff. So, you know, all of his claims where him and his attorneys came out and said that he was not even there. Well, he was like texting the girl and like calling her a bunch. And then, you know, telling the cop that his brothers kill people and stuff like that. So pretty unlegendary stuff from Jon Jones. However, he's re-entered the testing pool, and I'm like, I refuse to cover this, but like, it's something that we, you know, he's back in the testing pool now because now the president last week announced that there would be a UFC event on the White House lawn. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm not going to say I don't want it to happen. I don't want to talk about politics on Check the Kick. But what I want to talk about is would love to know how the hell that's all going to happen. Because I'm a proud U.S. citizen, like I am an American, and I care about the country either way you stand politically if you're listening to this show. But I would love to see just the logistics of it, how it's going to happen, who's going to foot the bill. More than likely, it's my tax dollars footing the bill. I mean, I guess I pay my taxes anyway. Better make the pay-per-view free. Free for all tax-paying Americans. I'm just very interested to see the logistics, but Jon Jones stated that he will be back. He's re-entered the testing pool because he wants to fight on that card. Like, bro, you're doing everything to not fight Tom Aspinall. There are some people that like, there's certain fighters with personalities where it's like, I don't really like them. And then people will be like, you're crazy. They're so-and-so. And I'll have to like defend why I don't like them. But like Jon Jones just makes himself real hard to like, whether you like him or not. Like if you like him, it's probably real hard to like him. Like it's probably real hard to be a Jon Jones fan right now, just with all the consistent, crap going on. So Jon Jones is a legend, and he's doing some pretty unlegendary stuff, in my opinion. The next person that we're going to talk about, Conor McGregor's current bodybuilding endeavor. He's been lifting weights lately, not with his hands, not with his legs, but he's lifting weights nonetheless. It's not a lot of weight, but he is lifting. A couple pictures of him surfaced recently. Just today, I'm recording this on July 14th in the late afternoon. And our dear friend Conor McGregor has been exposed for direct messages that he sent to a artist. Let me tell you her name. Her name is Azalea Banks, a rapper. There was some pictures that were shared back and forth between them, apparently. And there's been a lot of stuff. Conor McGregor came out recently and said that he's apologizing for cheating on Dee Devlin. And then there's like a picture of him with a girl on the beach, kissing her, hanging out with her. And then today there was a picture of him hog out, weight strapped to it. So he sent her some lewd pictures, and those are all leaked all over online. I feel really bad for his wife if she cares. Maybe she doesn't. But like they got kids and stuff. Like she's like super locked in. She's floating on a mega yacht, so her life's not that bad. But Connor's out there making a fool of her and her family. Like they got kids and shit. You can't post like about being a good dad and like a good family man and like do shit like that. Pretty unlegendary. It's kind of like when Jon Jones like posts a quote from the Bible and then tells the cops he's gonna have his brothers kill him. So some pretty unlegendary stuff is happening right now. Conor McGregor also this weekend looked like he was on the BKFC desk doing crazy. The guy could cut a hell of a fucking promo. But doing like promos with Mike Perry and looking like he's getting like a nice post-nasal drip and then like, you know, being excited about it. So he's actually down bad. He probably needs help. But he's doing some pretty unlegendary stuff. I really hope that him and Jon Jones both get it together, because both of these dudes, you know, will be legends of the sport, and they are currently doing some very unlegendary things. Moving on, we're going to finish off the show in with the new. We're going to talk about UFC 318. Pretty good fights on this card, even like all the way down to the prelims, like the Bruno Ferreira versus Jackson McVeigh. Like, he's finally getting his chance after like multiple failed opportunities. Bruno Ferreira always is in a pretty cool fight. We've got Marvin Vettori versus Brendan Allen finally happening. They're no longer in the casino lobby area or wherever it was. Kyler Phillips versus Vinicius Oliveira. That should actually be a pretty dope fight down at men's bantamweight. Michael Johnson is on the main card versus Daniel Zellhuber. That should at least be fun. D-Rod is fighting Kevin Holland. That should be kind of like two older dudes that stay active, especially in Kevin Holland. And then Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov is the co-main event. I'm actually not going to talk about the co-main event today. Reason being is because I'm not sure Paulo Costa is going to even show up for this fight, and I'm not kidding. Roman Kopylov is like a small 185er, like he's not the biggest 185er, and I don't know if he'll take a fight if Paulo Costa does the same shit he did to Marvin Vettori a couple years ago, where he's like, I'm 205, and if you want to fight me, it has to be at 205. Otherwise, I'm not even going to try to cut weight. I wonder if it's going to be some shit like that. So I just don't trust Paulo Costa and his inactivity and just his weirdness. So we're going to talk about two fights. Obviously, we're going to talk about the main event, two of my favorite fighters to ever do it, point blank, period. We're going to talk about Dan Ige versus Patricio Pitbull first. We're going to talk about two fights. And I think this is going to be a really fun, and it's going to be a pretty important fight. Odds on that fight, Dan Ige is a minus 200 favorite. Patricio Pitbull's coming in as a plus 170, plus 165 underdog. And I kind of agree with these odds. Dan Ige, he's been a guy that, you know, he's had some tough skids in the UFC, but he's also gone on some really good win streaks. Like, he lost his very first fight, funny enough, on the Miocic and Ngannou card, their first fight. Lost via decision after, you know, getting a rear naked choke on the Contender Series. That was all the way back in 2017 on season 1. Since then, he's won by knockout, you know, won a couple fights by decision, won some splitties, won by a rear naked choke. He beat Edson Barbosa. You know, he got a splitty over Mirsad Bektic, and then he lost that close fight to Calvin Kattar. He came back and sparked Gavin Tucker. Then he went on a 3-fight loss streak where he lost to Korean Zombie in 2021, had a really close fight against Josh Emmett. He lost against Movsar Evloev, but like, that was like Korean Zombie, still Korean Zombie. Like, he went on to fight Max Holloway and stuff after that, even though he was older and everything. The Josh Emmett fight was very close, and Movsar Evloev should be fighting for the title. So like, I'm not going to really hold that against him. That was back in 2022. He knocked out Damon Jackson. He beat Nate Landwehr. He had a kind of close fight where he lost to Bryce Mitchell, where I kind of actually think he won that one. Knocked out Andre Fili. He lost to Diego Lopez. That shouldn't even be on his record. He was getting a massage that day. I don't understand how that's on his pro record. I'm not even kidding. Like, that is a fight that shouldn't even have been sanctioned. He had no training camp. He was getting a massage, and he took that fight on like 3 hours notice at UFC 303 with the whole Brian Ortega thing. Kind of close fight with Lerone Murphy, and then last time out, he knocked out Sean Woodson. So like, this dude is very, very proven in this division. Dan Ige, he is a crafty boxer that's super durable. Lately, he's been even better power puncher. He's been like a good body puncher, and lately he's got better shot selection and just incredible durability. He's not a huge featherweight, and that's going to favor Patricio because he just looked like a whole division smaller than Yair Rodriguez. And Patricio did have that one stint down at 135 where he fought Sergio Pettis, and he kind of just got outclassed. Like, the 135er, just with the speed and his technical abilities, outclassed him. Sergio Pettis is a dude that's considerably underrated over and over again. Like, he was a big underdog against Raufeon Stotts recently in the PFL, and I'm like, why the fuck was this dude? Like, I picked him to win before even looking at the odds. Like, Stott's okay. It was like a 2.5 to 1. Like, he was like a plus 250 dog at that fight. I was like, what the fuck? Just weird. But like, yeah, he beat Jeremy Kennedy, but he lost in Risen. He lost to Sergio Pettis before that. This is Patricio Pitbull. Has a win in Ryzen. He beat Adam Borks, but that was like back in 2022. He had that weird where he got like club and subbed really quick by AJ McKee. We got tech subbed the second fight with AJ McKee, but now we're like looking back all the way in 2022. This guy has been a Bellator legend forever. He knocked out, he avenged his brother in 2019, knocking out Michael Chandler in a good but quick stoppage. He beat Juan Archuleta. That's probably one of the better wins. Pedro Carvalho is another good win that's on his record. He's defeated Daniel Strauss, Emmanuel Sanchez, Daniel Weichel. Like, he's got pretty good wins. He's fought Benson Henderson and lost. Daniel Strauss has also beat him previously a couple times in the past, and that's going like way, way back. Patricio is a dude that at one point might have been able to have, during like Alexander Volkanovski's reign, he had an argument to being the greatest featherweight on the planet. I was never convinced by that. And now he's older. Patricio himself, he's 38 at 145. Again, fighting the younger man. This time he won't be so outsized like he will be in the Aya Rodriguez fight. But like, unfortunately for Pitbull, he's fighting a dude that's like just as durable as Yair, and maybe he's not as athletic, but he's just as dynamic of a puncher. Like, Dan Ige cracks, and he's just as durable as Yair, and he's way less wiry and mistake prone. For Pitbull, Dan Ige is going to come out and fight the type of fight that Pitbull wants to fight. Like, Pitbull he's fast-handed, he's got good power, he's got good boxing. But they also both have like really similar skills with like pretty good wrestling, pretty good BJJ, so I guarantee that's going to cancel each other out. And I just don't see how the 38-year-old Pitbull is going to be able to hurt Dan Ige in the pocket and not get hit with something. Like, Dan Ige is a very willing body puncher. He's a good combination puncher, and he will set up his big combinations up over the top with shots to the body. And I think he's going to hurt Pitbull in this fight. I don't think he'll finish him, but I think he'll hurt him several times in multiple rounds. So give me Dan Ige to win a decision where they have one round that's pretty close and then two other rounds where he hurts Pitbull pretty bad. Moving on to the main event of UFC 318, UFC in Louisiana, we have Dustin, the Diamond Poirier, taking on Max Blessed Holloway. Odds on this fight. Max is the slight favorite. I guarantee this will close at pick'em odds. And let me just refresh because it has been a couple minutes. Yeah, Max right now is about a minus 135, 125 favorite. Dustin Poirier, you can get him at plus 115, plus 112. Plus 107. So real close to pick 'em odds, damn near dead even. This fight should be dead even. And it's funny that Max is the favorite because Max is the one that lost their previous two fights. These guys have a long history, and if you are listening to the show and you don't know who Max Holloway is or you don't know who Dustin Poirier is, thank you for listening. Come on now. Looks like these guys seem to fight like every 6 years. Their very first fight was, I've got to go back freaking pretty far. In 2012, where Dustin Poirier was the first person and only person to submit Max Holloway, we finished him with a triangle armbar. That was back in 2012. Max was very young at that point. He was like 20 at that time. And then they fought again in 2019 for the UFC interim title. And Dustin Poirier defeated him via unanimous decision. And that was on April 13th of 2019. So here we are again in July of 2025. And they are going to be fighting again. Max Holloway is coming off of a knockout loss, his very first knockout ever, which is kind of insane if you know Max Holloway, with his 26 wins and 8 losses. Max getting knocked out is very incredible because he's known to be extremely durable. Before that, he had the probably best finish. I mean, like next to Joaquin Buckley, as far as like violent knockout, that's going to be a viral moment forever. And even more, and Max's is going to be more memorable, where he knocked out Justin Gaethje. He absolutely face planted him with a combination to the body and then one up over the top. Crumbled Gaethje, and I mean, there's a very violent clip of Justin Gaethje that was like released way after, of him like seizing and like moaning and stuff. He was like out bad after that UFC 300 bout, but he looked great up until he knocked out Gaethje. He was cleanly winning. Before that, he had another walk-off knockout. Like Max Holloway, getting walk-off knockouts in 2 back-to-back fights where he face-planted. He also face-planted Korean Zombie. People are forgetting about that. Before that, he had that fight with Arnold Allen, where he literally also dropped and hurt Arnold Allen in the 3rd round of that fight as well. He did lose to Volk in their 3rd fight, did beat Yair Rodriguez, destroyed Calvin Kattar. He's the reason why Calvin Kattar looks the way he does now, in my opinion, or at least a big part of it. If you like, I'm not going to sit here and go through Max Holloway's whole entire career. The dude's an absolute legend. He's knocked out Jose Aldo twice, beat Charles Oliveira, fought Conor McGregor, fought Volk 3 times. Like the dude is just an absolutely incredible fighter. Beat Anthony Pettis, Jeremy Stevens, Cub Swanson, Clay Collard, which is funny. Dustin Poirier. He is coming off of a title fight loss himself, where he had a really, really good and pretty close fight with Islam Makhachev until he got Bravo choked, just over halfway through the 5th round of that fight. Before that, he was, people really counted him out. He got head kicked by Justin Gaethje back in 2023, where he got knocked out brutally in a close round. That he had a very close first round with Justin Gaethje. I scored it for him. Some people scored it for Justin. He got head kicked right at the beginning of the 2nd round, got knocked out bad. Then after that, he knocked out Benoit Saint Denis. He had a brawl with Michael Chandler before that one, where he, was like ringing Chandler's bell against the cage. Chandler was like headbutting him and doing all the cheating in the world and blowing like blood in Poirier's eyes and mouth and shit. But he ended up subbing him out. He had a war with Charles Oliveira where he lost via sub. He beat up Conor McGregor twice in a row. Had an absolute war with Dan Hooker, one of the most brutal fights in UFC history, quite literally. Got beat up by Khabib, had a war with Eddie Alvarez, war with Justin Gaethje. Both of these dudes are just straight up warriors. And this is a hard fight for me because they're like 2 of my favorite fighters just ever, point blank period. How could they not be? Dustin Poirier is a dude that is a southpaw, but a right-handed southpaw. So he's got a very good check hook, a very good lead hook, a good jab, but he knows how to hit with his rear left hand. He's got big power. I would say definitely above average power for this division. Very good combination boxing. Witty and brave in the pocket is how I would describe him, where he knows he's not the most durable guy. He's been knocked out. He's had his bell rung, but he knows how to stay composed in those firefights. And that's what's so admirable about him, is he'll get his bell rung. He'll start fucking bobbing and weaving. He'll boom, slip, and then land a shot on you, and then use his outside footwork to corner you against the cage, and then pop, 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 and then hit you with like a 6-punch combination. Ask Conor McGregor. He is a dude that will willingly take the back foot counter punch, and then he'll be willing to take it, get back up to the cage. And we've seen him do it several times where he'll get touched by something. He'll start bobbing and weaving, and then he'll boom, hit someone with a check counter hook right in the middle of a big exchange, wobble the fuck out of them, and then just use his footwork, circle to the outside, push them against the cage, and then start raining combinations on them. He is a visual boxer that will switch stances. He's got that American top team, that big switch where he'll lead with his left hand, throw a left jab, throw the right hand behind it. So he'll throw the 2 and then come up over the top after switching his stance with a big left overhand. He will do that. He's had 2 hip replacements, so he's not as dexterous as someone like Jorge Masvidal. Like if you watch Jorge Masvidal knock out Darren Till with like one of the most beautiful examples of that combination, where they'll like shift their stances. But Dustin Poirier is known to do that too. He will, he'll do it out of the southpaw, especially where he'll jab, 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 throw the left cross, and then boom, come up over the top with his right hand. Max Holloway. Max Holloway is a dude that is an incredible striker. He's got very underrated kicking. He broke Justin Gaethje's nose with a jumping, spinning back kick. He's not a good leg kicker, but he's got very good spinning wheel kicks, good head kicks. He really knows how to cut off his opponents and force them to change direction with kicks. He is an opportunistic striker when it comes to throwing those kicks where, if he sees a hair of an opening, Max is just willing to fucking take it. And when he fought Ilia Topuria and he got knocked out, he got his bell rung and he went to go meet Topuria in the pocket with a knee to the body and just got fucking finished there. So sometimes he'll see an opening, and he paid for it last time, but I also believe Topuria is a generationally special talent that's going to probably do that to the next person he fights. Topuria is going to probably, don't be surprised if Ilia Topuria fights and knocks out. Sorry, don't be surprised if Ilia Topuria knocks out the 3 next people he fights. Do not be surprised. Max Holloway is also an incredible combination boxer. He's got an incredible jab. He's got a pretty good understanding of range, but he really knows when to open things up. It's like, if you've ever opened a coconut, for example, like the first, hit with a coconut, maybe a little bit opens, but like slowly, once he sees that chink in your armor and he sees that coconut start to open, he's just ripping it apart with combinations. Ask Calvin Kattar. Violent dude. He's got, spinning back elbows, incredible boxing. He will, he'll keep his guard high and feint low and throw a jab to the body, and then throw a jab upstairs, and then throw a cross up top. Like, he'll mix up his variations. He mixes up his time. He mixes up his speed. He will, jab to the body and then, throw a cross up top, and he'll lower his levels in a feint and then throw a cross up top. If you take the back foot against Max Holloway, and you leave those openings against the cage, he will start raining barrages of combinations. In his Justin Gaethje fight, he actually had a little bit of a different approach, where I thought this, and up through, getting hurt against Ilia, he also had a similar approach where he was really relying more on his back foot game, where he would take the outside, use his speed, plant. Max Holloway is not the best counterpuncher, but what he's good at doing is planting and firing and good positions. So what he was doing against Justin Gaethje is he was using his footwork, making Justin Gaethje chase him. He would plant, fire off, and then leave. I think that's his best tactic in this fight. What the problem, and this is going to always be in their matchups, and it really showed in their last time out, was Dustin Poirier loves taking the back foot, and he is such a good, willing back foot counterpuncher. But Max Holloway likes moving forward. So like their styles collide and they clash. Max Holloway cannot fall into the extended, prolonged exchanges with Dustin Poirier, especially after getting knocked out by Ilia Topuria. If this was right after the Gaethje fight, like if Topuria and Max had never been matched up, Poirier and Max never got matched up, and they were going straight from the Justin Gaethje UFC 300 knockout to this fight, Holloway would be like a minus 300 favorite, just because he looked so incredible. He looked big. So the problem with Max is that I don't like is when he fought Poirier the first time, he just basically didn't cut weight. He, just did everything he did for his 145 camps. And he, even his face looked like a little fat and stuff. But this time, when he fought Gaethje at 155, there was a big focus on preparing his body. So I know that Max Holloway's team knows how to prepare his body for 155. But he just cut down to 145 not long ago and got knocked the fuck out. So like that just doesn't bode well for me. I wish this was his second fight at 155 with no bullshit, with none of the 145 stuff in between. I'd be so much more high on Max's abilities here to win this fight. But that knockout from Ilia really, really worries me, because Dustin is not as dynamic of a puncher as Ilia Topuria, but I would say he is much more willing to throw 6. Ilia doesn't typically need to throw 6 at you, but Poirier will shell and fire with like 6 punch combinations in return, especially if he hurts you and especially if you take the back foot. And there was a lot of moments where like Max had some gusto and he would fire back at Dustin, but you could tell he would get hit with a shot by Poirier and it would cause him to reset. And Poirier's a fucking hell of a puncher. Max Holloway said that he does not want to go 0-6 in trilogies. Poor guy has lost 3 times to Volk, and then he's lost twice to Poirier already. It's like his 2 Aldo wins by finish are like really keeping him up there. Max, if he does everything the right way, I think he should win this fight. This is going to be an all Poirier crowd, but like, how could you not like Max Holloway? Max Holloway is going to be a big fan favorite there too. I guarantee it. He's not going to get any boos in Louisiana. Max Holloway should never get booed anywhere. Neither should Dustin Poirier. But another thing you look at is like, okay, well, in 2023, Justin Gaethje head kicked and flattened Dustin Poirier in a fight that was really, really competitive up until that point. But like Max Holloway and Justin wasn't that competitive. Like he got dropped by Gaethje, but he popped right back up, and I think he can just use that same, like, he just uses his footwork. Poirier is not the fastest dude. He has decent footwork, but he is kind of foot slow at times, and he definitely can get like weird and shifty with his hips. I love Dustin Poirier. I'm almost not going to want to watch this fight because I don't want someone to lose. Like, I don't want to watch these guys beat up each other. Like, that's how I really feel about this fight. But Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier are very dangerous opponents. I think Dustin Poirier is a better boxer and craftier, but I think Gaethje probably has a little bit more one-hit knockout power, and he's more dangerous in the clinch. I think, and he's way more of a dangerous leg kicker than Dustin Poirier has been in the past, even though Poirier did eat up Conor McGregor with leg kicks. I think this is going to be a big-time stick-and-move fight from Holloway where he takes advantage of getting into the pocket, landing 2 and 3 punch combinations, and then just getting back on his bike. He can do that if he can avoid the shifting combinations from Poirier. A big shifting combination is kind of what hurt him against Poirier. But Dustin's been hurt and knocked out more than even Max has, and both of these guys have taken so much damage. This should be an absolute war. I'm going to go Max Holloway by decision. Poirier could win by knockout. Max could win by knockout. Poirier could win by, decision. There is a wild card with Poirier's grappling. He is actually a pretty damn good grappler, and he himself has pretty good ground and pound. But Max has got really good anti-wrestling, and if you go watch his Yair Rodriguez fight, he's not scared to chase a takedown either. So I think this is just going to be stuck on the feet. It is Dustin Poirier's last fight ever, and I wouldn't be surprised if Max wins by knockout. I wouldn't be surprised if he retired either. Give me Max Holloway to win a decision here in a fight that I'm going to be watching through my hands like this. That's the show, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and enjoy the fights.